Every single day, your feed is flooded with 23-year-olds telling you to quit your job, start a drop shipping store, or buy some random crypto coin to achieve passive income. It looks incredibly easy, but what they don't show you is the failure rate behind the curtain and the real financial risk they're not qualified to explain to you. Today, we're exposing the fake passive income hustle. We're going to look at why an entire generation is being sold financial advice by people who don't understand risk themselves. And then I'm going to show you the boring, automated, unglamorous strategy that has quietly created more millionaires than every side hustle combined. Let's get into it. Quick note before we dive in, I'm not a licensed financial advisor and nothing in this video is personalized financial advice. This is for educational and informational purposes only. Any numbers, returns, or examples I mention are based on historical data, and historical performance does not guarantee future results. Investing involves risk, including the risk of loss. Before making any financial decisions, do your own research or talk to a qualified financial professional who knows your specific situation. Okay, now let's actually get into it. Here's the pattern. You open TikTok or YouTube Shorts. Someone in a rented Lamborghini or a generic luxury Airbnb tells you they made 6 figures last month, doing nothing. They flash a screenshot of a bank balance, they tell you the system is rigged, school never taught you this, and they have the one trick that fixes it. The format is always the same 3 ingredients. First, a get-rich-quick mechanism. Dropshipping, crypto day trading, NFTs, AI side hustles, reselling courses about reselling courses. Second, urgency. The window is closing. Do this before 2027. I almost didn't post this. And third, zero discussion of risk. No mention of the capital they started with, the failure rate, the taxes, or the years it actually took. This isn't really new. It's the same playbook as get-rich-quick schemes from decades past, just running on better algorithms now. The difference is the targeting. These videos aren't randomly appearing in front of you. They're being served specifically to people who are anxious about money and searching for a way out, which, statistically, is disproportionately young people right now. And that's actually the most important thing to understand before we go further. This isn't a content problem. It's a literacy problem that bad actors are exploiting. So let's talk about why this hits different for younger viewers specifically, because the data here is honestly kind of alarming. Every year, the TIAA Institute and the Global Financial Literacy Excellence Center run something called the PFIN Index, a 28-question test measuring real financial literacy across generations. Not opinions, not confidence, actual functional knowledge. In 2025, Gen Z averaged just 38% correct, the lowest score of any generation tested. Compare that to baby boomers and the silent generation, who averaged 55%. That's a 17-point gap. And more than a third of Gen Z respondents got 7 or fewer questions right out of 28. Now here's the part that should genuinely concern you, regardless of what generation you're in. When researchers isolated the single hardest topic on the entire test across every generation, including the 55% scoring boomers, it was risk comprehension. Understanding actual risk is the weak point for almost everyone in this country. Gen Z just has the least defense against it because they're also starting with the lowest baseline knowledge. Now overlay that onto where people are actually getting their financial information. Recent research shows close to 70% of Gen Z gets money advice from TikTok and YouTube. So you have the generation least equipped to evaluate risk getting most of its financial education from platforms where the algorithm rewards confidence and urgency, not accuracy. It's not a coincidence. That's a vulnerability being actively monetized, and it shows up in the numbers. A large share of Gen Z, well over a third, doesn't even have 1 month of savings set aside. A significant chunk couldn't cover a $2,000 emergency if it hit tomorrow. That's the actual financial position of the exact audience being told to gamble on a meme coin instead of learning how to budget. So before we go any further, if you've ever felt behind or like you missed some secret that everyone else knows, you didn't miss anything. Most people are in the same position. the system that's supposed to teach this stuff in school largely doesn't. And that gap got filled by people selling you a dream instead of a process. That's the bad news. Here's the actual good news. The thing that actually builds wealth reliably is, unfortunately, not exciting enough to go viral. It doesn't have a flashy thumbnail. Nobody's filming themselves doing it in a rented sports car. And it requires almost no skill, no special knowledge, and no risk tolerance beyond this. I'm willing to wait. It's called dollar cost averaging into a low-cost index fund. And I want to walk you through exactly what that means, why it works, and what it actually looks like in dollars and cents. Because the math is the part nobody shows you, and the math is what's going to convince you. Let's start with what an index fund even is, because that term gets thrown around constantly without being explained. An index fund is a single investment that holds a small slice of hundreds of companies at once. The most common version tracks the S&P 500, which is made up of 500 of the largest publicly traded companies in the US. Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Visa, Coca-Cola, all in one fund. So when you buy a share of an S&P 500 index fund, you're not betting on one company. You're betting on the collective performance of the biggest players in the American economy. If one company falls apart, it doesn't destroy the whole investment because it's only one piece of a much larger basket. This is the opposite of what a crypto influencer is selling you. They want you concentrated in one volatile asset because that's where the dramatic gains and the dramatic losses happen. An index fund is deliberately intentionally boring. That's the entire point. Boring means stable. Stable means you're less likely to panic sell during a downturn, which is one of the most common ways people destroy their own returns. And here's the part that matters most. Historically, since the late 1950s, the S&P 500 has averaged right around 10% per year, including reinvested dividends. Some years, it's up 25%. Some years, it's down 20%, but zoomed out over decades, that's been the average. 10% a year doing absolutely nothing is not a guarantee. Markets can underperform for long stretches, and past performance never promises future results. But it's also not just a random guess. It's nearly 70 years of data. Now here's the second half of the strategy. Dollar cost averaging. That just means investing a fixed amount on a regular schedule every single month, no matter whether the market is up or down that day. Why does that matter? Because it removes the one thing that destroys most investors: trying to time the market. Nobody can consistently predict when the market will go up or down in the short term. Not professionals. Not hedge funds. Not the influencer with the rented Lamborghini. Dollar cost averaging makes that irrelevant. Some months you'll buy when prices are high. Some months you'll buy when prices are low. Over years, it averages out, and you never have to make an emotional decision about it. And the automated part is literal. You can set this up once, with an automatic transfer into an index fund on payday, and then leave it alone. That's the entire strategy. No charts, no Discord groups, no 3 a.m. price checking. Okay, here's where I want to actually prove this with numbers, because trust me, it compounds isn't good enough. Let's do the real math using that 10% historical average. Scenario 1. You invest $100 a month, starting today, for 30 years. Over that time, you personally contribute $36,000 of your own money. At a 10% average annual return, that account grows to roughly $228,000. That's not a typo. Your $36,000 turns into more than 6 times itself, purely through time and compounding. You didn't pick a winning stock. You didn't get lucky, you just didn't stop. Scenario 2, and this is the one I want you to actually remember. $200 a month. Just $200. You do that for 40 years, so if you start at 25, this finishes when you're 65. Over those 4 decades, you contribute $96,000 of your own money. The account balance at the end is approximately $1.27 million. Now that's it for a second. You contributed under $100,000 over your entire working life in amounts many people spend on takeout and subscriptions without noticing. and the math turns it into 7 figures. Not because you found a secret, because compound growth, given enough time, does the heavy lifting for you. This is the actual passive income strategy. It's not passive in the sense that money appears with zero effort up front. You still have to consistently set money aside. It's passive in the sense that once it's automated, it requires no ongoing decisions, no monitoring, no special skill, and no risk concentrated in one bad bet. Compare that to the drop shipping pitch. High effort, high risk, and a failure rate that almost never gets mentioned in the testimonial. This is the inverse: low effort, lower risk, and a return backed by decades of market history instead of one person's curated highlight reel. Just to be clear, those numbers are illustrations based on a historical average, not a promise of what will happen to your money. Markets go up and they go down, sometimes sharply, and a 10% average smooths out a lot of bumpy individual years. Always treat projections like this as a rough guide, not a guarantee. So what does it take to start this practically? You don't need to be a stock-picking genius. You need a brokerage or a retirement account. That could be a 401k, especially if your employer offers a match. It could be a Roth IRA, or it could be a regular taxable brokerage account. Inside that account, you buy a low-cost S&P 500 index fund, or ETF. You're looking for the kind of fund with a tiny expense ratio, often just a fraction of a percent per year. Then you set up an automatic monthly contribution and you let time do the rest. That's it. That's the entire system nobody's making a viral video about because there's no dramatic before and after to film. The drama is the absence of drama. The strategy is the patience. Here's the actual takeaway from everything we covered today. The reason fake passive income content performs so well isn't that it's more effective than real investing. It's that it's more entertaining than real investing. Urgency, drama, and the promise of a shortcut will always outperform put $200 a month into an index fund and wait 4 decades when it comes to watch time. But entertaining and effective are not the same thing. One of them gets you views. The other one gets you actual financial security. So if you take one thing from this video, let it be this. You don't need a hot tip, a secret strategy, or a 23-year-old's permission to build wealth. You need consistency, a long time horizon, and the discipline to ignore the noise. If this helped clear things up, subscribe and hit that thumbs up button. And please drop a comment. What's the worst passive income pitch you've personally seen in your feed? I want to hear it. See you in the next video.